Tonight on First at 5, an Arctic blast continues to break records across the country as some southern states see double digits of snowfall. We have a reporter live in the field to show you how local farmers are rising to the challenge.
Plus, Florida was named the most dangerous state for intersection accidents, the steps local leaders are taking to make a change.
And leaders in Marion County plan to live large in 2025, how officials plan on adjusting to the growing population. First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, from the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Colder air is starting to come through, and the UF weather team says there are freeze warnings in effect for much of our area tonight. It comes after a front brought heavy rains and showers earlier this week. Just 1 week ago, temperatures were in the 80s, and we were on pace for a record warm February. This is WFT's First at 5. I'm Nick Diaz.
And I'm Alex Land. But after those soaking rains Wednesday, our temperatures are now almost 15 degrees colder than average. We've got live team coverage of this February cold snap. Our Rhianan Beatrice is standing by with more on how farmers are preparing. But we begin with UF meteorologist Maxham, who says tonight will be the coldest night of the month across our area.
Yeah, that's right. Temperatures tonight are probably going to be into the upper 20s in a couple locations here where we do have a freeze warning. This is pretty much the entire area, all of Alachua County, most of Marion, and pretty much all inland areas of north central Florida going to see those freezing temperatures in the overnight hours tonight. We've got ideal conditions for cooling. We have a clear sky overhead. Last night it was cloudy. We were only in the 40s, so that is going to help us get even colder tonight. Currently, though, we're into the mid-50s, just a couple degrees away from our afternoon highs. We're going to be getting into the 40s overnight tonight, but today we did have a few spots in the 60s. It is going to be significantly colder for tomorrow afternoon, only into the 50s. This cold air mass is settling in, and as we talked about, we do have areas of snow to our north, but coming up, we are going to see temperatures turn around. I'll tell you when we're going to be back near 80 degrees coming up in a few minutes.
This cold weather snap is bringing freezing temperatures into north central Florida. WFT's Rhianan Beatrice continues our team coverage live at the field in Fork Farm with how this latest round of cold weather are impacting local farms.
Behind me are the banana plants at Fork and Field Farms. They are tropical plants, so they have been damaged repeatedly by the freezes. This damage comes in the form of browned leaves and shriveled fruits. Local farmers are taking extra precautions ahead of this freeze to protect their plants from damage like this. Daniel Ohana is preparing his plants at the Field and Fork Farm for the freezing conditions ahead. Ohana uses the frost cloth and caterpillar tunnel to protect the crops.
It's kind of a high tunnel, keeps the similar idea as the frost cloth, keeps an insulated area around the soil, traps in the heat from the sun during the day, and keeps it warm throughout the night.
This freeze warning covers areas from north central Florida into Georgia. University of Florida geography expert Stephen Mullins says this is the latest freeze we've had in the last 5 years. In the long term, however, this freeze is earlier than the average recorded over the past 15 years.
Our average freeze climatologically actually isn't until 7 days from now.
We could even see freezes as late as March.
Like with every freeze, we are worried about pipes freezing, we're worried about our plants and damage to the plants. And so covering our plants and covering up those pipes are always what we recommend.
One recommendation Ohana has is to take your crops inside during the freeze. The other...
There is frost cloth that I think you can buy from Home Depot or Lowe's or somewhere like that, and to cover your stuff at home.
The freeze warning will be in effect from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. Friday. Residents are encouraged to remember the 3 Ps: people, plants, and pipes, as temperatures get below freezing. Live from Field and Fork Farms, I'm Rhianan Beatrice, WUFT News.
If you do not have a place to stay with these severe weather conditions, the city of Gainesville has opened their cold night shelters. Officials say they will stay open until Saturday as long as overnight temperatures remain under 45 degrees. St. Francis House and Grace Marketplace are the 2 shelters open. Families and children are asked to go to St. Francis House while individual adults can go to Grace Marketplace.
An Arctic blast continues to break cold records across the central and eastern U.S. today, with several southern states seeing double-digit snowfalls and travel snarled up and down the eastern seaboard. 100 million people are under extreme cold alerts stretching border to border from the central U.S. and heading east today, with some temperatures plummeting 40 degrees below average. Flooding across parts of the mid-Atlantic from storms last weekend is not expected to crest in some areas until tomorrow, but in freezing temperatures, that poses even more threats.
Unnecessary travel not only puts you at risk, but also the public safety personnel, power crews, and DOT workers that will need to respond if there is an issue.
Air travel, also a challenge. At one point, over 3,500 U.S. flights were canceled or delayed, many trying to get through to the East Coast hubs, according to FlightAware.com. The UF weather team will continue tracking the cold front this evening. You can see their latest forecast on WUFT.org.
If there is an ice raid in Alachua County Public School, teachers now have to comply. The new policy was sent out to teachers in an internal memo and discussed at the school board meeting earlier this week. ICE agents have the power to interview and remove students with or without a warrant under the federal immigration law. If an agent wants to remove a student, school employees now have a list of guidelines to follow. These include requesting officer identification, contacting the student's parent, and being present during the student interview. University of Florida professor Rafael Solorzano says the district's new policies are unacceptable.
We must protect our students and families from policies that revert to thinly veiled racist policies that pushes them into the shadows or hiding.
ACPS does not collect information about a student's immigration status. Deputies have arrested a Marion County man they say sexually abused a child multiple times. Deputies arrested Philip James Locker at his home in Dunallen Wednesday after detectives investigated reports of repeated sexual battery they say happened while the child and her siblings were staying at his home. He faces charges of showing obscene material to a minor and 3 counts of sexual assault. Locker was taken to the Marion County Jail where he's being held without bond.
An update to a story we brought you last week. The teacher arrested by Ocala police officers accused of an 18-month-long relationship with a minor has her court date set. Officers say she was arrested for using her authority status to groom the teen. She faces 1 felony charge and her court date is set for March 18th.
A new report ranks Florida #1 when it comes to the states with the most dangerous intersections. And here in Alachua County, leaders are working to keep the roads as safe as possible. Sebastian Broche is live in the newsroom to show us the technology used to help regulate traffic.
This is Signal 4 Analytics, a site that measures crashes, injuries, and traffic deaths across the state of Florida. Officials at both the county and state level are using databases like these to determine higher risk areas in the roads. According to Signal 4 Analytics, there were nearly 700,000 crashes in the state last year. And of those crashes, some 3,000 people died as well. Government officials across the Sunshine State are now looking to combat these numbers however they can. Alachua County, for example, is planning to put up a traffic light on the intersection of Parker Road and Southwest 24th Avenue. Civil engineer Stuart Cullen details that it's more than just crash data that comes into play for these traffic lights.
When we evaluate a location or need crash data and evaluation for safety of a particular segment or intersection, we pull those reports from there and then work on verifying that they're assigned to the right location.
Cullen noted that certain areas and intersections can be designated signal warrants, which helps to determine if a light is needed or not. The cost of the new stoplight project on Parker and 24th is estimated to land somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million. Cullen also said that construction on the light is expected to begin this coming fall. Signal 4 also reports that the city of Gainesville saw over 5,000 accidents just last year. This has led to officials looking for new ways to cut these numbers down. Live in the newsroom, Sebastian Broche, WUFT News.
We're taking a live look at the road that will see some of the nearly $15 million that will go towards repaving Alachua County roads. Altogether, about 11 miles of 4 uneven, pothole-filled roads will be filled in. Those roads include portions of Northwest 202nd Street, Northeast and Northwest 156th Avenue, and Northeast County Road 1471. Some of the funding comes from the Wild Spaces Public Places half-cent tax, which goes towards fixing the city's infrastructure.
The Alachua County Animal Resources are asking for your help to find the owner of an abandoned puppy. A woman dumped a dog outside the county's facility and almost caused a multi-vehicle crash after the puppy tried to follow her back. If you know who this person is, please call Animal Resources at 352-264-6870 or contact the Sheriff's Office as soon as possible. Shelter officials will post when the dog is available for adoption for those interested.
An increased law enforcement presence is happening at Midtown tomorrow night. Gainesville and Santa Fe police departments will be at their alcohol awareness detail. The event is tomorrow from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the Midtown area. They will have educational outreach and a chance to measure your breath alcohol concentration.
Coming up, Ocala leaders expect a big year for the city. We'll tell you about what infrastructure changes you can expect to see in the coming months and years.
Plus, you might have heard of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles living in sewers, but gators? This UF study made headlines in the New York Times, and just how many critters they found in Gainesville sewers. When First at 5 returns.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
The Florida Senate has released a 129-page bill that would take steps to try to bolster healthcare, education, roads, and economic development. Leaders say the help is needed in 31 counties that have not experienced the same booming growth as other parts of the state. The legislation will aim to grow the healthcare sector by assisting financially struggling rural hospitals in addition to attracting doctors to those areas. In education, incentives will be provided for teachers in an effort to attract them to work in these areas, and state spending on roads and other infrastructure will increase. Senate President Ben Albertron, a citrus grower, hopes the bill will kickstart the economy of rural Florida.
The reason there's not economic development in rural Florida is that they don't have resources, and they don't have resources because they don't have any economic development.
Senator Albertron says the state needs to move forward with an emphasis on listening to these rural communities. The bill is filed for legislative session starting on March 4th.
Leaders in Ocala are touting several projects under construction and asking for neighbors' input for other plans scheduled for a later date. Last night, Ocala airport officials say they had one of the biggest turnouts in 2 decades at a public input meeting. They were discussing renovation plans for the Ocala International Airport to boost infrastructure and profit to accommodate the city's growing population. It's the result of 6 months of data collected, which city leaders say show increasing demand for aviation. Plus, the completion date for a new parking garage in Ocala has been set. City leaders say the 800-spot garage should be completed in the next 15 months. The project costs just under $95,000 and is set to finish in April 2026. And the Ocala-Marion Transportation Planning Commission wants your input on what transport should look like for the next 25 years. The 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan Survey was released in April of last year, and a community workshop will be held next week for residents to share feedback on transport priorities and investment decisions. To share your input, we've put a link to the survey on our website, WUFT.org.
More likely than not, there might be gators crawling under your roads and home right now. That's according to a UF study the New York Times released this week. A group of UF researchers discovered gators using Gainesville sewer systems to travel, but gators aren't the only ones using the underground system. The report says around 35 species use the tunnels, including birds, bats, and raccoons. Lead researcher Alan Ivory says some animals got in the way of the study.
Raccoons would regularly climb the ladder within the sewer, grab the camera, and yank it off. They're only attached via a magnet, and so as long as they can pull with about 15, 20 pounds of force, then they can steal my camera.
Ivory says sewers could be updated to fit the needs of animals who use them. He says ramps near storm drains would help animals escape after getting washed away during storms.
Freezing temperatures expected tonight, but after Friday, we're beginning a warming trend coming up. I'll let you know when we may see 80 degrees back in the forecast.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
This morning, temperatures were into the 40s. It's going to be significantly colder tomorrow morning. We're going to wake up with some spots into the upper 20s, low 30s. That's what we're expecting inside of this freeze-warned area, which does include all of Alachua County, most of Marion, basically all of inland and north central Florida. And we've got the cold air coming our way because of that storm system that brought us the rain Wednesday. It's bringing some snows to the Carolinas this evening, but behind that low pressure area, strong north winds are pushing down that coldest air. That's giving us our coldest night of February so far. You can see those snow showers across the mid-Atlantic still in place. big, dry, cold area of high pressure settling into the center of the country, and it has been breaking records. This cold air has gone all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Temperatures have been below freezing all the way down to the Gulf Coast. This morning, we woke up to temperatures around 26 Houston, 28 in Victoria, and into the single digits Oklahoma. We're not getting the worst of it, but definitely getting our coldest air of the season so far. Right now, skies are clear, and this is pretty much ideal for radiational cooling, meaning the heat from the earth escaping into space without that blanket of clouds. We'll see our coldest night again. 20s are possible, but I think most of us are going to see numbers more like 30 and 31, something like that. Temperatures in the 50s now, and again, winds are still out of the north. They're going to get lighter and lighter as we go later into the night. Futurecast not showing much in the way of precipitation. We're going to keep that flow of cool air coming our way, and we'll see slow moderating temperatures, so warming up just a little bit at a time. There is one storm system in the Gulf over the weekend, but it's going to have a minimal impact on our area, maybe bringing us a sprinkle. So it's mainly a temperature forecast, and the most extreme temperatures will be happening tomorrow into the 20s. Into the early morning, we're forecasting 30 in Gainesville, and highs they're only going to be into the mid-50s. That is cooler than it was today by about 5 degrees, but things get much more comfortable after this. Looking at the 7-day, we do have a nice little jump up in the temperatures by the end of the weekend and the start of next week, back up into the mid-70s, perhaps near 80 degrees ahead of our next cold front. That's coming at the end of next week.
Coming up in sports, Gator women's basketball is back on the hardwood tonight. Florida is fresh off a buzzer beater victory over Mississippi State last weekend and is looking for its first streak in conference play. Plus, we hear from Rhianan Wong as Gators gymnastics prepares to face number 1 Oklahoma. All that and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Ethan Eibe. Gators women's basketball takes on Texas A&M tonight on the road. It's another chance for Florida to earn back-to-back conference wins for the first time this season. The Gators are still riding the high of Jariah Warren's buzzer beater win over Mississippi State on Sunday. Although UF is 4-8 in conference play, there are some reasons for optimism. Freshman Liv McGill put up 20 against State, her 11th 20-point effort of the season. The Aggies have also lost 6 in a row. Tip-off in College Station is tonight at 8. Gators men's and women's swim and dive is in the midst of the Southeastern Conference Championships today in Athens, Georgia. It's the third day of competition for Florida, and the hardware is already stacking up. Senior Julian Smith won his first SEC individual title last night, checking in just a hair under a minute 40 in the men's 200-meter individual medley. 4 swimmers combined to post a 6-minute, 2.5-second time in the men's 800-meter free relay. That's a new SEC record and good enough to bring home gold for the Gators. The finals for tonight's events are slated for 5:30 as both the men and women seek their 3rd straight conference title. It's the most anticipated matchup of the year for Gators gymnastics in the nation this week. A top 5 tilt between number 5 Florida and number 1 Oklahoma. It's a rivalry with plenty of recent history, but it's not fazing some of the more seasoned vets like Rhianan Wong.
Yeah, like you really can't go in thinking like, oh, Oklahoma, they're number 1, like how are we going to beat them? Like it's really Gators versus Gators all the time. Like whoever we're competing against, we're bringing Gator Nation with us, and we're really competing with each other and really just building off each team.
The Gators are coming off a home win over number 12 Auburn last Friday at home. An upset in Norman would vault Florida above 500 in conference play. The meet begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Florida women's golf teed off its 3rd tournament of the spring season early tomorrow afternoon. The Gators head to Lake Oconee, Georgia to face 14 other schools in a weekend hosted by Mercer University. Paula Francisco is the name to watch for the Gators. She led Florida to a 5th-place finish at the Therese Hession Regional Challenge last week, the team's 6th top 5 finish of the season. UF will host the Gators Invitational from March 7th through the 9th, the penultimate competition before the SEC tournament in April. Sticking with golf, Florida men's star Ian Gilligan has climbed to the number 2 spot in the PGA Tour University rankings. Gilligan led Florida to a team title for the 6th straight year at the Gators Invitational last weekend, where he also earned SEC Golfer of the Week. He started the spring ranked 8th in the country and now sits behind North Carolina's David Ford for the top spot. Gilligan's next time on the green will be March 2nd through the 4th at the Southern Highlands Collegiate Tournament in Las Vegas. There's plenty of action tonight in the Gainesville area for high school baseball. Eastside is searching for its first win of the season tonight against Branford. Tonight at 6 o'clock. Undefeated Williston hosts the Hawthorne Hornets at 7, with Santa Fe and Westport both 1-3 starts to the season, rounding things out. And we've got some softball in full swing tonight as well, with Fort White hosting Brantford. Chief Linden and Williston face off, with both teams looking for their first win of the young season. And the Newberry Panthers pay the visit to Bronson, with both teams seeking their second win this year. And lastly, the championship game for the NHL's Four Nations face-off is tonight at 8 between the U.S. and Canada. Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper is looking to bring home the title for Team Canada.
Well, yeah, Ethan, I mean, speaking of lightning, I know you said it was going to be really cold tonight, but surely we're not going to get any lightning.
Nothing like that. It's just going to be cold. The temperatures are going to be right around 30 degrees overnight tonight. A quick look at the 7-day shows. There is improvement after the very cold Friday, where we're only into the 50s. We're close to average as the new week begins, into the upper 60s, but mid-70s by midweek, getting cooler at the end of next week.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and all of our social media platforms. Have a good night.